Today's agenda is first starting with welcome from me, and my colleague Georgia will be talking us through mapping the journey to net zero. After that, we'll introduce our guest speakers from the following organizations listed. All our guest speakers will be presenting to answer the main topic of the webinar, which is how hydrogen can unlock a greener future. After the session, we'll have some discussion related to the topic and take a few of your questions for Q&A. We'll also have a quick survey and wrap-up session after that. I'd like to now invite Ian Gruffy from Department of Energy Security and Net Zero to introduce himself and share his presentation.
Thanks, Avi. Can I just check that that's on screen for you?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Fantastic. So, thank you very much, everybody. So I'm Ian Graffy. I'm a Senior Policy Advisor at the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero, which is the UK's department which has at its heart climate change, net zero, and for me, the role of hydrogen. So really great to be here today. So I'm going to talk through a handful of our slides just to kind of give a sense of the UK's policy landscape. Hydrogen is vital for UK energy security, economic growth, and to achieve net zero. So we see hydrogen playing a role in hard to electrify areas, sectors such as industry, heat, power, and transport. It's not entirely clear exactly which different applications will be using hydrogen. There's a good debate about that going on, and it'll be important for the market, along working with government, to determine the best uses of hydrogen. But as I said, the sectors that are harder to electrify directly. That said, the chart on the right sets out how the UK could see hydrogen representing 20 to 35% of energy consumption by 2050. So that's a really significant change from where we are today. And that evidence was used in our carbon budget impact assessment from last year. So we see hydrogen playing important roles in energy storage, resilience, and flexibility for the power system. So there's lots of money can be saved by using curtailed renewable electricity. And the kind of headline that we come back to time and again is our core ambition to support 10 gigawatts of low carbon hydrogen production by 2030. That certainly doesn't get us to 20 to 35% of UK final energy consumption, but having that ambition in the near future really helps drive our approach. So starting with production, we have this 10 gigawatt ambition, of which 4 gigawatts is CCUS enabled, so methane reformed hydrogen. 6 gigawatts is we think will be electrolytic hydrogen. We're supporting hydrogen through something called the hydrogen allocation rounds. In December, we supported the first 11 projects. That represents over £2 billion worth of revenue support. So I think one of my core messages today is that hydrogen is happening. The government, the Treasury is really beginning to put its mouth where the money is. I got that right. So really, there's hydrogen being unlocked. That's 125 megawatts, and we're looking to increase that for the next allocation rounds to 875 megawatts. So production is ramping up. That's coupled with the CCS enabled projects that are starting in HyNet and the East Coast cluster. And there will be further clusters through the Track 2 and also the Track 1 expansion, which has been announced for the HyNet project. Transport and storage is absolutely vital for hydrogen. It needs to be stored to ensure that there's a secure supply for end users, and also so that producers of hydrogen can feel assured that the investment that they're putting in, there's somewhere for the hydrogen to go, so you achieve that matching of supply and demand. The Energy Act in 2023 was a key part of the primary legislative approach that we're taking, and that will underpin the business models. So that's subsidies for hydrogen pipelines and hydrogen stores, particularly at a large scale. So that's geological underground stores. And that's our ambition at this stage, to support 2 storage projects. and the associated pipelines in construction or operation by 2030. We've heard from industry that transport and storage is a key bottleneck, and we've really brought forward the business model allocation. So that's set for Q3 of this year, when the first allocation rounds will launch, with the aim for contracts to be awarded by the end of next year. And in the long term, NESO, so that's the National Energy Systems Operator, would take over the role of planning hydrogen networks from 2026, and there's a consultation coming forward for that. On the right is a map, and through the PDF you'll be able to look at this Ofgem map that is beginning to lay out where we think hydrogen networks are. Now, just to be clear, those lines on the map are existing gas and electricity infrastructure, but that gives you a sense of what infrastructure might be converted. And then in other colours, you've got where the large power stations are. I think I've shown where the carbon capture fields for geological storage of carbon dioxide are as well. So I'm conscious that I'm got to rattle through the last bits, but demand is also absolutely critical. We have a range of different proposed policy support mechanisms. So we have the Industrial Energy Transformation Fund, that's the IETF, £500 million fund, and there's a phase due to open later this year. For the power sector, that's for flexible power generation using hydrogen. We have launched a consultation on this around the role for dispatchable power agreements and access to the power capacity market. In December, we announced a positive strategic decision to support blending of hydrogen up to 20%. And that's to support as an off-taker of last resort. So that's not the core role for blending would be to decarbonise, but to give certainty that there's a demand off-takers for hydrogen. And we've also announced that the role for hydrogen in domestic heating and other heating will be taken in 2026. Conscious of the time, but there's also a range of policies that DfT lead on emissions trading for the aviation and maritime sectors. SAF, so that's for the aviation sector. There's a mandate to support hydrogen's role there, and there's the renewable transport fuel obligation and capital support in the transport sector. So look, I've got one more slide looking at industry. I think I'll just end with the headline there that we've got, this is my area, and I'm happy to take questions on industry, but we've got an ambition for industry to replace 50 terawatts of fossil fuels by 2035 with low carbon alternatives, including hydrogen. Now that is also including electrification, which will be the other key technology. So I'll stop there, happy to take questions, but I'll hand back to Avi. Is that okay, Avi?
Thank you, Ian. I think, can you see my slide at the moment?
No, I can just see the letter A. Oh, it's coming up, I think. There we go.
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation. And we will take a Q&A later after the presentations. I'd now like to invite my colleague Zuzia to talk us through mapping the journey to net zero.
Thanks, Avi. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Georgia. I'm Knowledge Transfer Manager for Net Zero Innovation Adoption here at Innovate UK Business Connect. I'm really pleased to be kicking off the first part of our webinar, setting the context for our discussion. So to set the stage, I'm going to be giving a bit of an overview of the important role of innovation in our journey to achieving net zero and how hydrogen fits into this. Can you move to the next slide, please? Brilliant. So I'm sure most of you are aware by now, but climate change is one of the most pressing issues of our time, not just in the UK, but also internationally. As Ian has already outlined, the UK has set a really ambitious target to reach net zero emissions by 2050 and was the first to do so. This requires a significant transformation in how we both produce and consume energy, and innovation will very much be at the heart of solving this. Now, since that legislation came into place almost 5 years ago now, there's been a significant number of policies, strategies, and papers to support this transition. And one of those most relevant to our discussion today is the UK Hydrogen Strategy. And there's also been a significant amount of government investment that's been unlocked to support innovation in this space. And as we'll be exploring today, innovations such as hydrogen can actually play a really pivotal role, not just as standalone solutions, but also as part of a broader integrated approach to reducing carbon emissions. And essentially, by incorporating hydrogen into existing technologies and enhancing them with innovative approaches, this can actually really help us to accelerate our transition to a low carbon future. Next slide, please. Great. So to understand how innovations like hydrogen can be adopted effectively to support net zero, we first need to start by looking at the diffusion of innovation. Now, I'm aware that for some of you, the term diffusion might be a little bit unfamiliar or a little bit reminiscent of studying biology during GCSE at high school. But to put it in quite simple terms, it just means the movement of something from one place to another. So in the context of net zero, it helps us to understand how new ideas, technologies, and solutions such as hydrogen spread in society over time. Now, whilst this model was developed in the 1960s, it does still remain highly relevant and useful today, particularly in the context of achieving our net zero goals. And just for a bit of context, so the theory suggests that the adoption of innovations, such as those for net zero, follow quite a predictable pattern, which is often depicted as an S-curve, as shown on the slide, with different groups of people adopting the innovation at different stages. And as you can see, the model outlines 5 key groups, and each group plays a really critical role in the adoption process. So the first stage in the model is the actual innovation itself. So this is where new enabling technologies for net zero are identified and developed. And these innovators are then connected with established industries, and these technologies begin to be adopted. And often we see at this stage that the number of early adopters is actually quite small, and that's mainly due to the risks associated with adoption. So this might be due to things like cost or safety concerns, as can be with the case of hydrogen. But then once the adoption becomes more common and more industries witness the benefits of it, the innovation then becomes more widely accepted across industries. And that's when we see the later diffusion stage, where more people begin using it and positive change is created. I think it's probably important to highlight at this point as well that actually understanding the perspectives of the various stakeholders that you're working with, so whether that be your end users, industry partners, investors, or policymakers, is actually really crucial for developing and implementing net zero solutions such as hydrogen effectively. And this is mainly due to the fact that by identifying their needs, their preferences, and the challenges of each stakeholder group, organizations can then actually tailor their innovations and strategies to effectively address these concerns and challenges, whilst then also communicating the benefits and then actually maximizing the potential for long-term adoption. And this approach actually ensures that solutions are designed with both end users and key stakeholders in mind, which essentially leads to more effective development and implementation, which is what we're after. Next slide, please, Abby. Brilliant. So with this in mind, we've developed quite a high-level user journey framework for organizations that are either currently or looking to develop and implement net zero innovation solutions such as hydrogen. Now, as you can see, the framework includes 8 key stages and takes quite a structured approach to ensure that users can move through the stages systematically as a way to address their challenges, but whilst also leveraging opportunities at each step before progressing on to the next. Now, as you can see, there are 8 key stages, the first on the left-hand side being the awareness stage. So within the context of hydrogen, this is where users become aware of the potential of hydrogen in addressing their net zero challenges and essentially begin to explore its relevance, such as what we're doing today. We then move on to the interest stage. So this is where individuals or organizations explore the practical uses of hydrogen and the different areas that it could be used, such as in transport. And then the third stage is evaluation. So this is where the user conducts an assessment of the feasibility of implementing the solution before moving on to the trial stage. So this might be where you test the feasibility of the innovation in a controlled environment by running something like a small-scale pilot project to gather data and identify any unforeseen challenges or opportunities as it presents. And then the 5th stage is all about adoption. So after having trialed it and then decided whether it works for you, you would then look to affirm your commitments by integrating solutions into your operations as a permanent solution to your net zero challenges. And then we move on to the 6th stage. So this looks beyond that commitment. So once the commitment has been made, the focus is on implementation and deploying the innovation at scale before then moving on to diffusion. And this is a really key stage for us. So this is all about sharing your successes and lessons learned through things like developing case studies, maybe hosting site visits, or even participating in knowledge sharing activities such as this webinar series today. And then the final stage is all about continuous improvement. So this is about your ongoing efforts to drive innovation and improvements through activities such as gathering user feedback, and then using that to improve your product or offering. Now, I should probably mention at this point that we are actually due to launch this framework very soon on our website, specifically tailored to organisations that are looking to adopt hydrogen innovations and technologies to support your wider net zero objectives. And it would include things like additional links, readings, and reflective questions. So essentially serving as a self-help tool to support you move through the process and aid you in your hydrogen adoption journey. So I'd very much recommend for you to keep an eye out for this on our website and continue to engage with us in this webinar series, as we'll be sharing an update on that during our future sessions. And next slide, please. So to gain a better understanding of where our audience stands in their hydrogen adoption journey, you might recall that we asked you to complete a very short survey while signing up for this webinar. Firstly, thank you very much to everyone who participated in this. It provided us with some really useful insights, and here's a snapshot of the results. So as you can see on the slide, the results highlight quite a broad spectrum as to where people are at in their journey towards adopting hydrogen to support the net zero goals. And as you can see, quite a large proportion of you are actually already at that evaluation stage. So you've already begun to assess and look into some hydrogen solutions, which is really great to see. But then interestingly, we also have a fair spread of organisations that have actually adopted hydrogen and are even at the later diffusion stages too. Now, I do recognise that, dependent on the type of organisation you represent and the role that you have within that, you might face different challenges and even opportunities. So we would very much encourage you to embrace these differences and remain curious. As I mentioned earlier, innovation is very much a continuous process, and there's always something new to learn and improve on, whether you're just starting out or you're more advanced in your adoption journey. So we would very much invite you to engage with our panelists today. We have a really broad range of speakers. Ask questions, share your experiences so that you get the most out of the session and the wider webinar series. So that's all from me for now. Thank you very much for listening, and I will now pass back over to Avi to introduce our panelists for the next part of the session.
Thank you very much, Zosia. It was really insightful to go through mapping the net zero journey, and I'd like to, I have already introduced the organizations of the speakers, and I was slightly earlier in inviting Ian Graffy from the Department of Energy Security and Net Zero. Now I'd like to invite Celia Greaves from Hydrogen Energy Association to share her insights.
Hello, everybody. Let me just get my presentation up with the session. Hold on a second. Okay. I can't now see anybody, but I'm hoping someone will shout if you can't see that. Otherwise, I'm going to plough on. So I'm conscious that time is passing, so I'll try and keep this relatively short. So first of all, a quick introduction. I'm Celia Greaves, as Avi said, CEO of the Hydrogen Energy Association, with a leading hydrogen trade group in the UK. We've got it's actually about 120 members now. And as you can see here, we cover the whole hydrogen value chain from the various types of low carbon hydrogen production through transportation and storage, and then into the application stroke use areas. And of course, underpinning that, supply chain companies, engineering, professional services, etc., all of which are going to be a core part of this journey with us. We are a key focal point for national and international engagement on hydrogen, and our mission is twofold. So first of all, to promote our members in the sector, and secondly, to make sure that we have the right policies in place to help us all to grow and foster as we move forward. Grow and flourish, I should say. Last thing to mention here is, as some of you will know, perhaps many of you know, the space is increasingly crowded these days in terms of representative organisations and such like. So a couple of years ago, we set up the Hydrogen Coordination Forum, which brings together around a dozen national and regional bodies with interest in hydrogen. And we work with those organisations to further strengthen the dialogue with government, provide a more comprehensive shared voice for that dialogue, and also to look at how we can share and learn from each other. And that works particularly well with some of our regional partners within the forum. Moving on, if I can. I will be remiss if I don't quickly mention our conference, which is taking place on Thursday this week. And really just to say, this is quite a quick session we're having just now. If you'd like to have an all-day conversation about hydrogen with associated networking, this is the place to be. You can head over to our website. The details are at the bottom of the page there, and we'd love to see you there. Moving on, so Ian shared part of this slide, but I think referring back to the premise of the session today, I wanted to just dwell a little bit on the why hydrogen piece, and hopefully this will develop some of the themes that Ian mentioned. I think for us, it's a three-pronged aspect to this. Yes, hydrogen is absolutely about net zero, and that's across a number of different use cases, as Ian said. Those hard to decarbonise areas as a starting point, particularly industry and heavy transport, and increasingly hydrogen for power. So we've got the decarbonisation element, where hydrogen will sit alongside and complement other solutions. We've also got a really important growth agenda that hydrogen can deliver on. So to quote my colleagues at the Hydrogen Innovation Initiative, and the potential for up to around over 400,000 jobs to be created by 2050 within UK hydrogen technology supply chains. And this is all about embedding industries into the UK that then can export to what's going to be a huge global industry going forward. And similarly, £46 billion in value being generated for the UK economy. And then the third pillar here is the energy security element, where the storage of hydrogen is an absolutely critical aspect of how we move forward to deliver energy resilience in a future where we are seeing an increasing mix of renewables, intermittent renewables coming to form the basis of our power sector in the UK. So having that storage really strongly brought to the fore is really critical if we're going to have energy resilience going forward. So three main elements for us in terms of why hydrogen. Ian laid some fantastic groundwork in terms of describing where we've got to with bringing forward hydrogen production, hydrogen transportation and storage, and those use cases as well. So we really do have some good foundations in place. And what I wanted to do was to build on that very briefly, and I'm sure we'll talk more in the conversation shortly, in terms of some of the areas that we see where we need to drill down and make sure that we're making progress to ensure that we can deliver these outcomes and the objectives we had in terms of things like the 10 gigawatt hydrogen production target. So in terms of unlocking the hydrogen production, the hydrogen opportunity, I'd like to sort of just flag up quite quickly 5 main elements. So clearly bringing the cost down is a really important aspect, and that applies across the piece. And you'll see on this slide that these various elements are completely interconnected. Delivering on the other elements will help us to bring costs down. Of course, there's also a role for technology and innovation in there, as we hear from our colleagues, and we'll be hearing in future presentations. So bringing costs down will help to make hydrogen more competitive, and will reduce the need for government intervention, and will just help oil the wheels to make the whole process move more quickly. And of course, the support that we've got will help to bring that down in terms of economies of scale, but that's not the only thing that we need to do. So if I can just talk about some of the other elements here. Our members are telling us that the skills issue is something that we really need to get to grips with. It's not just a UK problem. We know it's a global problem as well. And it's all about making sure that we've got the people and capabilities in place to support our industries to grow over the next 5, 10, 15 years so that we can make the most again of this hydrogen opportunity. We're working very closely with partners through the Hydrogen Skills Alliance, where we've been looking at mapping the landscape and then looking at the interventions that need to spring from that, and also feeding into the net zero skills strategy, which we're looking to see coming out shortly. And alongside that, we also need to make sure that we support the development of UK manufacturing and supply chain capability. It's been encouraging to see the launch of the Green Industries Growth Accelerator and the 960, sorry, it's just over £1 million, £100 million, sorry, going into that for hydrogen and CCUS. If we're honest, by the time we've spread that over those two areas and over 5 years, it's not going to be the answer that we need in the medium to long term. It's a good start. We hear from our members of really attractive opportunities to set up new manufacturing facilities overseas, and we need to make sure that we can help keep them here. And then quick wins is another area. So our members are very much at the vanguard of producing, moving and deploying hydrogen, and they're seeing that a number of practical challenges around things like how the regulations are evolving, and it's very much a function of the fact that we're moving very quickly in this space. We don't have the luxury of decades to gradually transition into a future energy system. We need to move forward really quickly, as we see with the goals and ambitions that we have, and that means that we're trying to sort of fix some of the practical problems at the same time as we scale up and accelerate progress. So we just need to make sure that we stay on top of all of those things and make the path as smooth as possible. So by removing regulatory barriers, making sure that we have awareness among key decision makers and enforcing bodies and things like that. And then last but not least, that whole systems approach. I think we, as I said, we very much applaud the work that DESNZ is doing and as looking across those areas of production, transport, storage and demand. There are still disconnects. We see something of a disconnect in terms of time. So we've got production coming on stream already through the HAR rounds, transportation, storage, as Ian said, coming in 2030. We appreciate the efforts to speed that up, but we've still got that disconnect. And we really do need to see, and again, we're not alone in the UK on this, but the demand side, just to make sure that future HAR rounds and similar can be as successful as possible, just making sure that we're synchronizing everything up. And it's really about making sure that all the pieces are aligned and moving in tandem. Absolutely critical to making sure that we get the most efficient use out of the system and get the most cost-effective solution for hydrogen in the round. So I'll stop there, but I hope that's given something of a compliment to what Ian said and just flagged up some things that perhaps we can discuss in the panel discussion shortly. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Celia. I would like to invite Stuart McKay from Scottish Government to present.
Thank you. I'll try and be quick just to move things along. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm really pleased to be invited to speak today. I'm Head of Hydrogen Policy for the Scottish Government. I've been working on hydrogen about 10 years, a long time. So I've seen it grow exponentially recently, which is really satisfying. From a policy point of view, we've been building up, as you can see from this list of documents, working closely with Ian's colleagues in the UK government, a pile of paper. And what we're doing here is creating an evidence base. And this is just a wee graphical image of over the past couple of years. There's been some really pivotal documents produced, strategies, action plans, and analysis on hydrogen. The conclusion of all of these is that we need hydrogen, and we need it to play certain roles in our society going forward. So that means we need to produce it. And Ian and Celia, mentioned this quite a lot as well in their presentations. For the Scottish Government, our most recent document is the Hydrogen Action Plan, which you can see online. I've got links at the end of this slide pack, and the British government has, is that we support blue and green hydrogen. And we have an ambition for 5 gigawatts installed capacity by 2030, which is about 1 million tonnes. If you put it in that kind of, if you think of it that way, it's quite a lot of hydrogen. And 25 gigawatts by 2045. There's a lot of activity in Scotland. We have 52 announced projects. That means they're publicly announced. In total, we have about 93, because some are quite confidential. They don't want to sort of break cover yet. But what we see is growth, and what we see is huge activity, a lot of activity happening, all sorts of different size and scale projects. We also see hydrogen as an opportunity, so not just a net zero tool to help us achieve net zero, but an actual economic advantage that we have in Scotland. We have lots of offshore wind. This is Scotland here that you can see on this diagram. 28 gigawatts has been proposed come through the leasing round. It's a lot of electricity. Some of that, we hope, will be used to create hydrogen to be exported abroad. We have a vision for the future. This is a wee diagram to show you where we have large scale. This is green hydrogen here, green hydrogen production, servicing local demand, transport, heavy transport, industry, potentially housing as well in some way. And also we've got all types of renewable electricity. We've got hydro, pumped hydro, onshore wind, offshore wind, even tidal in future, all having surplus electricity because of their intermittent nature, and diverting some of that to hydrogen production, potentially an oxygen market going forward, but servicing an export market as well, either by pipeline to perhaps Germany, Rotterdam, and to the UK as well, by ship potentially, but by pipeline too. So we see it as an economic enabler for us going forward as well, not just a net zero opportunity. This is my kind of second last slide, just to move things along. We've got some practical examples for you of things we're doing as a government. So really practical things are, we've produced a CPD course through a collaboration of 5 universities in Scotland. And the CPD course is free of charge, and it's for all city planners and local authority areas in Scotland to get a level of expertise up within all the councils who will be dealing with planning applications for hydrogen. So that's the CPD course. It's free to access for planners. The module for it will be free to anyone to go and have a look at the modules yourself. So that will be launched in June, so very soon. The other part we've just completed is a consenting guidance portal to make it easier for developers to map their way through how hydrogen production projects are consented in the planning system in Scotland, and all the kind of regulations that you need. And that will be a portal that will give a kind of one-stop shop for developers and planners to see. So these are really practical things that we're hoping will make a difference quite soon, move things through the system a bit quicker. This is a list of reports that we've done on hydrogen, and if you want to have a look at those, they'll be they're available for you. I've sent them through to the hosts today. Thank you. Look forward to the question and answer session later.
Thank you very much, Stuart. Now I'd like to invite Professor Tim Mays, Director of HiRes, to share his insight.
Thank you. If you could put up my slide, please. Thank you. My name's Tim Mays. I'm Professor of Chemical Engineering at the University of Bath, and I'm leading a number of large publicly funded research projects related to hydrogen, one of which is called UK HiRes. Some of you may have come across that, I hope so. If not, please email me and I'm happy to forward you details. HiRes is all about identifying and prioritizing research challenges related to unlocking low carbon hydrogen as we move towards net zero. But this afternoon, I thought I'd be brief and giving some highlights that are important to me, that I think that we should all bear in mind when we're looking to hydrogen to unlock a greener future. So the first bullet point, please. I think we should never ever forget why we're doing this. And this is global climate heating due to the use of fossil fuels and how we can mitigate and adapt to that. I think we should never ever forget this. And in many of my talks, including to the public and to other fora, I always start off by reminding everyone about why we're doing this. The second bullet point, please, and it's related to this, is that the people who make laws and the people who are subject to them need to be engaged in why hydrogen is important and useful and interesting. And I'm not sure that we've done our best in engaging with the public or with policymakers, and this is no criticism of DESNES, to ensure that they understand why hydrogen. For example, I was at a parliamentary meeting last year where a member of parliament stood up and said, why bother with hydrogen? We've got lots of electricity, why even bother? Utterly misunderstanding the options for mitigating supply and demand mismatch in renewables and intermittency. And I think this kind of misunderstanding or myth busting needs to be urgently attended to. And in fact, there was a question that came in the Q&A related to some of these public demonstrators for hydrogen networks and systems, and that some of the public engagement has been awful in terms of engaging with the public and explaining why these things are being done and the benefits that may subsequently emerge. If we go on to the next bullet point, I think hydrogen has a bad press. I've been working on hydrogen for 20 odd years now, more than, and it goes through thick and thin. And occasionally there's a splurge of activity and interest, which we're going through now, thank goodness. But there have also been periods where it's seen as niche at best. I think we should never forget that hydrogen has played a significant role in where we are now in terms of modern society. And the example I often give is using hydrogen feeding with nitrogen from air to make ammonia. And eventually that ends up as fertilizer, amongst other things. And without ammonia-based fertilizers, crop yields would be a half or less than what they are now. And really, we wouldn't be in the level of civilization, if you can call it that we are now. So hydrogen, and also going back further in people's memories to town gas, where hydrogen was a component of town gas fed into people's homes, together with carbon monoxide and other gunge. And I think we shouldn't forget that hydrogen has played an important role in where we are now, but we are moving forward. The next bullet point, please. A considerable worry amongst the public and with others who are not familiar with hydrogen energy systems is concern about hydrogen safety. And often I hear the phrase, hydrogen's unsafe. In fact, hydrogen is not unsafe. There is always an investment that you can put into a system to make it safe. It's whether or not that investment adds too much of a burden onto the process, in which case you don't do it. So I think that hydrogen safety is a significant issue that needs to be addressed and we can educate people. We can explain that hydrogen has often been used on industrial sites very safely for many years. We do have to be careful on the rollout into the public domain, whether it's into transport or heating or other applications. And I think it's really important to emphasize that you can make things safe. It's whether or not the investment to do that is worthwhile. And if it isn't, then don't do it. But I think that the case is made that we can deal with hydrogen safely, even in the public domain. The next bullet point, on penultimate one, is that there's a danger that you overhype hydrogen. I have seen hydrogen overhyped. It's going to solve all our problems and is a Swiss Army knife to solve everything. Everything's going to be hydrogen-based. Well, that's not going to be the case. Hydrogen will play an important and significant part in decarbonisation and achieving net zero. Its time is coming. Not there yet, but we're nearly there. But it's not going to solve all our energy and environmental problems. And there are other aspects. Nuclear is coming along, new nuclear, and other energy systems and optimization that needs to be done in our energy system. So I think that we acknowledge that hydrogen will be an important and significant component of achieving net zero, but not be all and end all, and we need to make sure that we don't oversell. And finally, my final bullet point is that we must be honest about the challenges that we face with hydrogen. For example, the investment into making it safe, but there's huge opportunities in terms of new technology, which is always a bit of a worry to people in terms of cost and availability. In terms of there are opportunities for new employment, new training opportunities, and of course decarbonisation. And there is a link right back to the first bullet point: is if we don't do anything to mitigate and adapt to climate change, we could be in a severe pickle. Maybe not so much in the so-called rich West, but in vulnerable areas of the world that we must protect. So I've given a rather philosophical component of our presentations today, but I hope that's pressed some buttons. I'll hand back now. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Professor Tim, for insightful remarks. Now I'd like to invite Katie Milne, Program Director of Hydrogen Innovation Initiative, to share her insights.
Thanks very much, Avi. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, and you can see the slides, yeah?
Yes, thank you.
I am sharing. Close that. Right, so hello everybody, my name is Katie Milne. As Avi said, I'm the Programme Director for something called the Hydrogen Innovation Initiative. You can see who the partners are of HI there. I won't read them all out, it's a long list. We've got 12 partners and we're supported by Innovate UK, and we're really bringing together the research organisations, so in that translational research space in the UK, in a similar way that the EPSRC funded hubs like Tim's HiRes brings together many of the university institutions, but we're a bit higher up the technology readiness level in the type of thing that we do. Our mission is to accelerate critical technologies and supply chains in the UK for the fast-growing global autonomy. So we're all about how you unlock the hydrogen economy, but in particular, what we're interested in is how we make sure that the UK reaps the economic benefits of hydrogen, in particular through building up supply chain companies who are able to, yes, deliver upon our domestic decarbonisation needs, but also take the opportunity to export internationally. And therefore build up those green jobs that can last decades. We bridge across the hydrogen value chain, production, distribution and use. We talk about 9 critical technology areas, and we are supported by an industrial advisory board, and you can see the companies that are on there, and that includes the Hydrogen Energy Association, so Celia's organisation. Our partners are very active in hydrogen already. This is just giving you a few pictures, but we're literally supporting hundreds of projects with industry at the moment. Some of them are funded by Innovate UK through the Hydrogen Innovation Initiative funding, but others are done through just partner collaborations. So I've got some examples here. We're supporting a planetary health golden ticket for a hydrogen company. With Pioneer Group, we're working on hydrogen storage down at the National Composite Centre. We collaborated recently with EasyJet on their first trial of a hydrogen tractor, with Associated British Ports last year on their first trial. So that's an airport and a shipping port. We've run a hydrogen sensor accelerator programme with the Digital Catapult, and then our partner, the National Physical Laboratory, are doing lots of activity on understanding things like how you measure the purity of hydrogen, how you sense hydrogen leakage. That's just a little mosaic to give you a feel for the breadth of the things that we're doing. But then we also have a more strategic role, trying to look forward at how the UK can take advantage of that opportunity that I spoke about to bring to the market new hydrogen products and services, technology products and services that they can then sell into the fast-growing global hydrogen economy. So we published a report in April called the UK Hydrogen Innovation Opportunity, with some supporting roadmaps, an overview of UK current capability and our market methodology. And these are some of the top line figures in that report. So looking across the entire hydrogen value chain and direct and indirect economic activity, so not just hydrogen production or hydrogen production storage, but looking into its use in industry and transport, we forecasted with a kind of leading market analysis company that by 2050 there'll be an $8 trillion hydrogen economy, and that will be underpinned by a $1 trillion global hydrogen technology market, which is delivered through these 9 technologies that I spoke about previously. We've pulled out 4 focus areas, which represent the biggest area of potential for the UK. And in terms of time, we believe that we've got a 10-year window to secure our position as a market maker in that emerging global economy. And that assumes really that you've got a fast accelerating market through the 2030s and 2040s, developing into a mature market by 2050 for the technology, which means that we need to be focusing on innovation now. Now, one of the myths that I want to talk about on hydrogen is this balance between, is innovation needed or is it ready? And my own frustration is that, of course, there is no room for nuance sometimes in those discussions. Some people say we're ready to go, and other people say it's immature, but of course, both can be true at the same time. So the reality is that the hydrogen technology has been around a long time, and that in terms of it being implemented in the way that we think about the scale that we're talking about at the moment, it is ready to go for those first of a kind, first generation implementations. But it is also true that to scale up the manufacturing processes, we need innovation. To be sure that we have got good operations and deployment, we need innovation. And that to get second and third generation technologies, whereby the technology is cost competitive, we need innovation. And it's countries that are going consistently and aggressively at that innovation agenda who will deploy quickest domestically, but will also be the countries who manage to have the biggest supply chain selling into that global market. And that's the thing that we really want to talk about. Last thing, and then I'll stop, is that in partnership with Innovate UK Business Connect and HiRes and the other EPSRC HIACT, we are running an event on the 2nd and 3rd of July at the Pendulum Hotel in Manchester. You can find the link on the internet now if you Google it, or if you go to the Hydrogen Innovation Initiative LinkedIn page, you'll see a post there, and you can register at the moment you're interested to attend, to speak, or to exhibit free of charge. So that's me. I'll stop. Thank you very much, Avi.
Thank you very much, Katie. Now I'd like to invite Henry James, Net Zero Portfolio Manager for Industrial Clusters at Wales and West Utilities, to share his views.
Thanks, Avi, and good afternoon, everybody. So yeah, Henry James, Net Zero Portfolio Manager at Wales and West Utilities. I look after a number of projects focused on industrial decarbonisation, and I'm about to pull up a slide to show, if Anita can pull it up, to show the scale of our issues as a grid operator. Thanks, Anita. So Wales and West Utilities, we are one of 5 gas distribution networks in the UK, and we operate around 35,000 kilometres of gas network across Wales and the southwest of England. For us, I'm really pleased to hear of Ian's support and from a DESNZ perspective, and obviously we're engaging with the hydrogen transportation and storage business model. The last few years, we've seen hydrogen production technology be subsidised through HAR1, HAR2, and cut upcoming in HAR3 and 4, and also on the behind the meter investments as well, such as the Industrial Energy Transformation Fund for decarbonisation of sites themselves. But what has been omitted so far is the grid and the importance of transportation and storage. So that's where we come in. At the moment, this slide shows the last 2 years, two-yearly outlook on essentially energy usage in the UK. The blue line there shows gas usage across the UK, with the kind of squiggly red line below it showing electricity. Now, we know that electricity is part of the solution, and it will be the option for much of industry, much domestic heat in terms of decarbonisation. We know that heat pumps have a role to play, and we know that some industrial consumers will be decarbonising through the use of electric solutions. One of the issues we have as a grid operator clearly is moving that energy around. And if you look at the capability of the networks at the moment, what the networks at the moment are designed to do is fundamentally do what's in front of you now. So this slide represents the requirements and design of an energy system which was formulated, well, designed and built back in the late 20th century. Since then, it has been looked after, maintained, and babysitted fundamentally, but not upgraded to a significant extent to meet net zero. Now is the time to do that. But if we look at some of the key issues, if we think about just moving, for instance, domestic heat onto the electricity network, a lot of that gas consumption now on the blue line is domestic heat, about 85% of us, and that means 85% of us on the call have gas boilers. Moving that over to the electricity network is challenging for that perspective because it's designed to do just that at the moment, which is around 500 gigawatt hours a day. So moving an extra 500 gigawatt hours at its absolute lowest in summer onto that system is fundamentally challenging. And that's not without the addition of transport as well for many who are moving to EVs. This is why we need hydrogen. We need all tools in the toolbox to meet net zero and to make this challenge as easy as possible and as cost effective for consumers as possible as well. So that's my 30 seconds, and I'll move on to now the Q&As and wrap up there.
Now I'd like to talk a bit about our other offerings, Hydrogen Innovation Network and Innovation Exchange, which are our programs that help with hydrogen innovation. Hydrogen Innovation Network is a community of UK hydrogen supply chain to businesses, public sector, academia, end users, and other people interested and involved in the hydrogen supply chain. You can take the links through the QR code and find information on joining the network. You can also find a way to join Hydrogen Supply Chain Directory. At the moment, it is taking quite some time for organizations to appear on the map, but eventually we'll get you on the map. And there's also, as you can see, the introduction request, Hydrogen Directory introduction request, where you can request introduction to the organization of your interest for unlocking new business opportunities or for funding purposes. We do have a program called Innovation Exchange, which helps with solving your technical challenges. If you have encountered any challenges in the journey of solving innovation challenges in hydrogen sector, we are here to support you and to seek innovators to help find the right solutions for you. I'd like to thank everyone, thank our speakers, thank all the delegates for listening and tuning in. I hope to see you in our future webinars. If you have any questions, please do get in touch. We'll be happy to send the slides after the webinar. It might take a few days to receive the slides and survey after the webinar. Thank you very much, and I wish you all a wonderful day.